Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the American Friends of Rabin Medical Center's Annual Gala. Now, please give a warm welcome to a good friend of AFRMC, our MC for the evening, Magalie Laguerre-Wilkinson.
Good evening, everyone. I am thrilled to be back in person. I feel like screaming. It's so exciting to be in this room with everyone. Everybody looks beautiful. Woo! Come on, let's get going. Yes, it has been a long and difficult few years. It's my 4th year as Master of Ceremonies here, and much has changed in the past 18 months, but AFRMC's mission to support Israel's Rabin Medical Center in Greater Tel Aviv remains as strong as ever. For those of you who are just learning about this organization, I promise you will be blown away by tonight's presentation. To begin, it's my honor to introduce to you the new president of the Board of American Friends of Rabin Medical Center, Mitty Lieberson, president and managing director, Davison Young's New York office.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for such an amazing turnout. It feels so good to be back, doesn't it? We have a fast-paced and meaningful program tonight, but let me first begin by honoring the memory of Stanley Chira, one of our own and a dear friend of AFRMC, who passed away from COVID last year. We extend our sympathies to our board member, Ricky, and the whole Chira family. I would like to recognize all the incredible people who helped make tonight happen. To our extraordinary honorees, Rick Clark and Marc Leader. Please know we are all here to honor you both and to celebrate your incredible accomplishments. Thanks to all of you, our individual and corporate sponsors, for your outstanding generosity and for being here tonight. And finally, for those of you who are learning about AFRMC and Rabin Medical Center for the first time this evening, I know you will be impressed to see and hear how together we are making a difference in Israel and furthering the legacy of Yitzhak Rabin here at home. I hope you will be inspired to become involved. To that end, I invite you to join us this spring as we embark on a spectacular VIP trip to Israel, which will include a visit to the hospital in Tel Aviv, where I just found out I was born, and where you will see firsthand the incredible medical advancements underway at Rabin Medical Center. I know this special tour of Israel will uplift you.
Rabin Medical Center was the first and only Israeli hospital to build a dedicated 500-plus bed coronavirus hospital. It's hard to imagine the challenges the hospital faced since March of 2020, yet Rabin and Israel set the global standard for research, treatment, and vaccinations. Yes, I think that deserves a round of applause, please. One Rabin Israeli Arab doctor commented, "Doctors haven't heard about racism. For decades, I've been saving Jewish lives every day." Such compassion shows how the hospital consistently responds quickly and humanely to unfolding events. And that's just COVID. Add to that the missile attacks from Gaza, with hundreds of missiles falling around the hospital in Tel Aviv. And the hospital responded immediately with underground shelters and wards retrofitted within hours. Not a single COVID patient suffered as the hospital treated incoming wounded. And please, if I may have your attention, Rabin's Level 1 Emergency and Trauma Center remained on high alert for many weeks in the midst of the pandemic. During this time, there was immense tension within the Israeli population. And how did the hospital react? Rabin Medical Center sent buses to safely bring its Israeli Arab medical staff from villages as far as an hour away. And together, we honor Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin's legacy of peaceful coexistence by standing by the hospital during the ongoing pandemic. Now, moving on with the program, I'd like to invite up AFRMC's board member, David Schwartz.
Good evening. It is a good evening because you're all here. Thank you. And thank you, Marc, and thank you, Rick, for your good deeds. 10 years ago, I traveled to Auschwitz with Holocaust survivors and their American liberators. We joined other survivors and liberators from around the world to bear witness to evil. Among my co-travelers was a rabbi who survived the Treblinka extermination camp, and whom I felt compelled to ask, Rabbi, how do we defeat evil? Without a blink nor a pause, he responded with the Hebrew word mitzvot, which means good deeds. At first blush, his answer seemed a bit simplistic to me, but who was I to question a rabbi who had witnessed evil firsthand? From Auschwitz, I traveled directly to Israel and ultimately to the Rabin Medical Center, where I came to understand the rabbi's answer. Auschwitz and the Holocaust were conceived, designed, built, funded, and sustained by evil to destroy life. In awe-inspiring contrast, the Rabin Medical Center was conceived, designed, built, funded, thanks to all of you, and sustained by mitzvot, good deeds, to promote, protect, and prolong life.
This evening is really moving along. I'm thrilled to take a few moments and chat with my dear friend, Scott Rechler, CEO and chairman of RXR Realty and honorary chair of AFRMC, in a little fireside chat, Scott. A conversation about bouncing back, getting back to normal, getting the wheels turning, getting back on track.
This is great to be in a room filled with so many people with so much energy like we are here tonight, and I would leave it to Rabin Medical to be one of the first organizations to actually be able to have all these people gather in support of such a great cause. So congratulations to everyone with Rabin and for all the people coming out tonight. So
New York is feeling like it's coming back. We're seeing people out in restaurants, and then tonight we really have the proof of it. I mean, look at this room. This is proof that we're back. So why do you think that is? Take it away.
You know, I think New York, like Israel, right, once again has proven how resilient we are as a community, right? There's been many times in our history where we've been knocked down and people have written our obituaries, and we have found ways to come back better and stronger, and I think this was no different. I mean, if you think about when New York was the epicenter of COVID, we came together as a community, we flattened the curve, our essential workers, our healthcare heroes, really rose to the occasion, helped us navigate through that process. And then, you know, when it came time, when the vaccination was discovered, you know, we were the first ones to start adopting it, start mandating it. Today, we have 87% of our 8+ million people are vaccinated. So New Yorkers were able to come back, and now we have, you know, what looks like the new normal. The one thing I just want to caution people about, in my mind, is there's, you know, where we are from this new abnormal to this new normal, it still takes time, and we're still not there, and we can't get complacent. You know, if you look, you hear about the stock market rising, you hear about unemployment coming down, but it really is very much a have and have not economy out there. And a lot of people who have suffered structurally because of COVID, and I think COVID really highlighted some of the inequities that we have in our community, still need to be addressed, and frankly are widening because of this circumstance. And so, you know, as you think today, as an example, right, our small businesses, our restaurants, hospitality, they're still suffering. And our transit system doesn't have the ridership to be able to continue to move forward as it normally would. So what I would say is we have more work to do. We have to be focused on getting back to normal. And, you know, I think if anyone speaks to the governor when she's here tonight or speaks to the mayor, you know, there should be some advice, and the advice should be, the first thing is call every major CEO, large and small, and ask them to come back and bring their people back to work. Give everyone Metro cards so they can ride the subway systems. Ask the MTA to actually bring back service so it's normal, so they're inviting people back. They have a great relationship with the city, a great experience with the city, and then make our streets and our subway systems and our transit system feel safe. Flood it with police, address our homelessness crisis, address the cleanliness of the streets.
Yep.
And you have to spend money in the short term, but it's a great investment for the long term.
Look.
So if you have a chance, pass on that message tonight.
We will. Amen. So I guess we're done. No, I'm kidding. New York City's your turf. You've said that, you know, we're not returning to a world that existed pre-COVID. So to use your terms, how do we recalibrate and recover in a post-COVID world? And ironically, today is the day that the borders have opened up internationally. So there's a lot to celebrate. Is that a start?
Yeah, that is definitely a start, getting our city reopened for tourism. But, I think it's about leaning into our strengths, right? I mean, one of the things that makes New York so great is we're this great magnet for talent. People from around the world, the best and the brightest, want to come live here, work here, visit here. And so we have to do whatever we can to encourage that. More structurally, how do we think about the world that's going to be different than it was pre-COVID and address some of those problems? So, for example, there's going to be hotels, there's going to be office buildings that aren't going to be competitive anymore. So we got to start accelerating the process of transforming them into competitive uses. We need to think about how do we make our downtowns more vibrant, like we did post 9/11. Post 9/11, we reimagined Lower Manhattan to make it a live, work, play, 24/7 community, and that's why it's been so successful today. We need to do the same thing with our CBD in Midtown as well. So we just can't go back and assume it's going to be business as usual and things are going to be normal like they were. It's going to take work. We need to be intentional about it, and we need to just be actively thinking about how do we think about what made us competitive before and how we can be more competitive in this new normal environment.
But seriously, though, we're here tonight. We're also in a celebratory mood, right? We're celebrating this hospital that's done so much, that's achieved so much, and clearly Israel has been an example in this battle against COVID-19. In the midst of a war as well, as if that wasn't enough to throw, a curveball in it. But are there lessons that we can learn from that part of the world and how we fix things here?
As a New Yorker, I've always thought of Israel as our sixth borough. And so there's lots of lessons, the sixth boroughs. Yeah. There's a lot that we can learn and have learned from Israel in the past. And I think, the theme of resiliency and innovation, right? I mean, Israel led the way on getting the vaccination, led the way on pointing out that we actually need boosters to try to move forward. But they've been resilient through so much. But whenever they have challenges of the past, the history, they learn from that to build a better future. I think that's a lesson New York should learn is that let's take the challenges that we just faced and let's reimagine a better New York. Let's use this moment as a renaissance for New York for the next decades and generations to come.
So as we wrap up our little chat and move on to dinner, I just want to ask for one last thing, which is, of all of us here tonight, every citizen in this room, what message do you have to us, and how can we, each and every one of us, how can we make a difference in some way?
I think the message I would just say is we should take ownership and responsibility for building stronger communities. This is our city, and I think too often we abdicate our problems and solving our problems to elected officials, when in reality, we're also responsible. And I think just pointing to elected officials or complaining about challenges versus offering answers or being engaged, being active, and trying to solve the problems is not really what a New Yorker is all about. I quote frequently Justice Brandeis, who says, the most important political office is that of private citizen. And I take that to heart, that we should all leave here tonight and lead by example. Take the subway, bring your people back to work, help people in need, support your small businesses. We should be advocating for the good for the city, and we should use every moment we can to try to think long-term about some of the inequities that exist in the city, and how do we structurally change it for the better for the long term.
Scott, thank you so very much.
No, thank you.
This was
Always
a great
pleasure.
chat.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Everybody, enjoy your dinner.
Good evening. Isn't it great to be out with people and not having to cook at home anymore? I can feel the energy in this room, that pent-up demand, just that desire for human interaction, not on a Zoom meeting. Plaza's back. All the staff are so excited to be here, and I'm very happy to be here to see that my beloved city is back as well. Mitty, I want to thank you and Rabbi Ploud and Scott Rechler and so many others, Stephen Siegel, for just caring enough about a place, yes, it may be far away, but a place that lives up to the ideals that we all share. This sense of responsibility to each other that is indigenous to all of us as those who love Israel and those who love this country. It's what we do. We find ways to serve others. And this truly also embodies the vision of someone I followed closely as a child, the Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin. He was an extraordinary individual who had a vision that we could provide services regardless of religious background, ethnicity, where people came from. Everybody was entitled to quality health care. And that's what you're doing here tonight. By your generosity, coming together, yes, to socialize, but to say that we believe in a greater cause than just our own lives. And the workers there are extraordinary individuals who are filled with such compassion for their fellow man and woman. And what we saw during this pandemic was an outpouring of that love. Despite the risks to themselves, they showed up day after day after day. But to simply call people heroes doesn't seem like enough. We want to continue to send resources and support from our country to Israel so they know that they'll have whatever they need to take care of. So I want to thank all of you for being true believers, for being compassionate yourselves, and looking beyond your own lives to help others. I, as the governor of the state of New York, will continue to deepen our relationship with Israel in any way I can. And I will always continue to make sure Israel knows that New York is a true friend and ally forever. Thank you, my friends, for the honor to meet you this evening.
So, American Friends of Rabin Medical Center honors two outstanding leaders, which has always stood strongly in support of AFRMC. Welcome back to the stage, Scott Rechler, to introduce Rick Clark, our first honoree.
It's my pleasure to actually introduce Rick Clark tonight for the Yitzhak Rabin Lifetime Real Estate Leadership Award. And for those who don't know, Rick actually, just to show you the type of mensch that he really is, to me, him actually receiving this award in honor of Yitzhak Rabin, who is a great role model of leadership, made me think about a great role model for him in John Zuccotti, who was the chairman of Brookfield, who, for those who didn't know John, was probably the quintessential New Yorker that you would turn to as deputy mayor and then ultimately as a civic leader about how you give yourself and your passion and your love to this city to make this city a better place. And Rick obviously worked very closely with John, and then when John passed, Rick carried on that focus on being committed to making our city a better place. And in Judaism, we have this concept of tikkun olam, which means literally to repair the world. And in my experience of watching Rick, sitting with him on many boards, whether it's a 9/11 Memorial Board or the Performing Arts Center Board, he takes that to heart. He spends his days not just focused about the commercial activities, but how do we make our world, our communities, stronger places. And so I can think of no one better to be given this award in the light of Yitzhak Rabin than Rick Clark. Rick? The Yitzhak Rabin Lifetime Real Estate Leadership Award to Rick Clark, co-founder and managing partner, WatermanCLARK, legendary real estate leader of Brookfield Properties, magnanimous New Yorker and generous spirit, exemplar of civic and corporate responsibility. Thank you to a true friend of Israel and the Jewish people for helping Israel's Rabin Medical Center flourish and excel. In deep gratitude. Thank you, my friend, Rick Clark.
Thank you, Scott, for that very generous introduction. Those of you that know Scott Rechler know that he and his colleagues at ARCS are champions for community advancement, including accessible and top quality public health care. They not only do great work in business, but they do great community deeds as well. So I'm very humbled to receive that introduction from Scott. And those that know me know that I'm not really that comfortable standing in front of crowds like this, exaggerating my accomplishments, so I really appreciate Scott doing that for me. Thank you all for being here. It really means a lot. Just to get serious for a minute, the work done by the talented members of the Rabin Medical Center is nothing to joke about. For example, as you've heard some reference to tonight, in the middle of the global pandemic that has changed how we look at our medical infrastructure, the Rabin Medical Center continues to lead and continues to pioneer saving lives. During the pandemic, the world often followed what was initiated by Israel with the help of Rabin. Their research, testing, development of social distancing guidelines, and work on vaccinations gave us our first steps to get in front of the pandemic, showing us that now more than ever, the importance of the medical community across the world working together to solve this major issue is important. This spirit of cooperation and humanity without borders, if you will, is why I'm so honored to be recognized by the American Friends of Ravine tonight. In the face of adversity, in the face of conflict, even war, in the face of global pandemics, Ravine is always a pillar of strength, fulfilling Yitzhak Rabine's legacy of peaceful coexistence using accessible health care, regardless of background, as an avenue. You might not know this, but 1/3 of the Ravine Medical Center's doctors, staff, and administrators are Israeli Arab or Palestinian citizens of Israel. 1/3 of its 1 million patients a year are also Israeli Arabs. During the missile attacks last spring, the Rabin Medical Center stepped up to protect those important medical workers by finding and providing safe and secure transportation to and from the hospital to ensure that the regional tensions didn't isolate them in their homes, or worse, put them in jeopardy as they moved back and forth to do their important work, including saving lives. I want to thank and congratulate my fellow honoree, Marc for his tremendous philanthropic work. Marc, it's an honor to share the podium with you tonight. May we take comfort in knowing that the vision of peaceful coexistence of the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin lives on at Rabin Medical Center as it pioneers, innovates, connects, and heals. Thank you to the American Friends of Rabin Medical Center for the Yitzhak Rabin Lifetime Real Estate Leadership Award, and thanks again for all of your support and for being here tonight.
What beautiful words, Rick. Really, well deserved. The American financial sector has been a long-standing and enthusiastic supporter of American Friends of Rabin Medical Center over the years. The organization is deeply honored to bring up Roger Kraus, co-CEO of Sun Capital Partners, to introduce our next honoree, Marc Leader. There you are.
The most difficult thing for me in writing a brief introduction for Marc Leader is indeed making it brief. We've spent most of our lifetimes together intensively, in good times and bad, and if Marc isn't a brother that my parents gave me, then he is a brother that God gave me. Through it all, I have had an unvarnished view of perhaps the most benevolent soul that I could imagine. Now, you may not know how benevolent Marc is when you first meet him, because he is, how should I say it, quite direct and quick-witted. Wharton undergrad, the fast track at Lehman Brothers, and at the ripe old age of 33, moving down to Florida and co-founding Sun Capital Partners. Sun Capital is a unique private equity firm based both on its culture and its operational focus. By the numbers, 26 years in business, around 425 companies acquired, 8 private equity funds raised and invested with around $13 billion in aggregate, and outstanding returns, particularly over the past 10 years. We had a rough patch just before that, and Marc's drive, reflectiveness, and ingenuity were instrumental in getting the firm to be better than ever. In fact, Marc notes that without the learnings, including those about ourselves in the tough times, the firm would not be hitting the heights it is today. But back to Marc's benevolence. He doesn't actively recite the golden rule, but he actually overdoes it in how he lives his life. Marc does unto others what he would have them do unto himself for sure. But in addition, he does overly generous things for others that he wouldn't accept for himself. I always hear of his extreme generosity to one person here and another person there, and I'm sure I don't know the half of it. And Marc established the Leader Family Foundation years ago, as soon as there was an inkling of his growing financial success. Finally, Marc is receiving a very important honor tonight, the Yitzhak Rabin Financial Leadership Award presented by the American Friends of Rabin Medical Center. With Marc's financial acumen and track record, as well as his generosity and benevolence, I am sure he is fully deserving. The American Friends of Rabin Medical Center present the Yitzhak Rabin Financial Leadership Award to Marc J. Leader, co-founder and co-CEO of Sun Capital Partners, for outstanding and expert leadership in global private equity, trusted partner, loyal friend, exemplary philanthropist.
Well, first of all, welcome, old friends and new. It's great to be here. It's great to see all of you. Many of you I've seen, but some close friends I've not seen because of COVID. It's quite the honor tonight. When I grew up in high school, grammar school, dreaming to go to Wharton, dreaming to work on Wall Street, to do great things in finance and business, I never dreamed that my recognition would come from a hospital in Israel. So we're all approached by a lot of charities throughout the world, a lot of great causes. Why did we all choose this one? Why did I choose this one? So I'm going to share my personal journey. And it all started when a good friend of mine asked me to write a check for this cause. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know why I was asked to write a check for a hospital system in Israel. But like I always do, literally hundreds of times a year, I wrote a check to support my friend. Years went by. Each year I wrote another check. If I could make it to the event, which never happened once, I would, but instead I'd filled my table with friends. And then about a year ago, and they said, you know, it's been a really tough year. Because of COVID and some other military issues, our costs have gone up materially, and because of COVID, our donations have gone way down. And they said that the real estate community in New York has been incredibly supportive for a long time, but we'd love to try to broaden our base of support. And given what you do in business and philanthropy and your sports teams and all this other stuff, we think you've got a pretty broad network, and we'd love you to be honored. Then I thought about it, and I did a little research, and I went to their website, and like everyone probably in this room, what affected me most was when I read that they serve patients irrespective of the words exactly are age, gender, nationality, and religion. And I don't have a bone of prejudice in my body. I understand the issues in the Middle East are complex, but I really don't understand why they can't be solved. I mean, how many years have we been working on it? So I thought that if I can do a little part of help raising money for this symbol of hope in the most volatile area of the world, but more importantly, expose a good number of my friends to that there is an organization that cuts across all those issues, that it was worth my time and worth asking my friends to come in and support it as well. So that's why I'm here tonight, and what I really want to do, and the reason I brought my drink, because I'm not an alcoholic, and I didn't bring a speech because I tend to just talk from my heart versus preparing ahead of time, which sometimes is really scary. But I want to raise a glass and toast all of you, because you're the ones who deserve the thanks for the generous donation and being here tonight supporting this great organization 5,660 miles away. So cheers, here's to you.
Well, mazel tov to our honorees, really very moving speeches. It's a good thing it's towards the end of the evening because you got me a little, emotional. Anyway, but really, thank you, Rick and Marc, for bringing us all together tonight. It's because of you, it's thanks to you that we're all here. So you're really the icebreakers of this otherwise, these last few months that have been, not few, but long months that have been really tough. So it's really nice to kick it off celebrating the two of you. So I'd like to bring up our executive director of AFRMC, Joshua Plout, to say goodnight and with some final words.
Let's give Magalie a round of applause. I just want to thank the Rabin Medical Center for giving us this opportunity in the United States to bring Israel and America closer together to foster global health care. In closing, I am pleased to announce that American Friends of Rabin Medical Center is proud to establish the Rick Clark Rabin Medical Exchange Annual Fellowship and the Marc J. Leader Rabin Medical Exchange Annual Fellowship. Each fellowship brings a Rabin doctor from Israel to the United States annually to study under world-renowned doctors in the United States. Thank you to Rick. What a mensch. Since 2019, we've been waiting for this moment. And thank you, Marc. Marc, a new friend, a good friend, completely dedicated to our cause. And thank you to you and your buddy, Roger. I want to thank you for all that you have done. And your legacy will be established now through these 2 fourth-year residents who come annually, and hopefully you'll be able to meet them as well, the best and brightest, the rising doctor stars of Israel, who come here to specialize. I want to thank again, a round of applause to Rick Clark and to Marc Leader for stepping up tonight. And I want to thank you all. The evening continues with dessert buffet, the jazz trio outside, and a great swag bag. Thank you for being here. We promise you a short evening. God bless you all. Happy Thanksgiving a couple weeks in advance.